Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. It's the second week of the month, so it's time for another round of unapologetics, where we don't apologize for truth, we learn how to represent our King well. We're continuing on our journey as ambassadors for Christ, the mission given to us in 2 Corinthians 5:20, knowing that God is making his appeal to the world through us. We are here to represent him and his kingdom. As we've already seen, representing our King well doesn't mean getting into a bunch of heated arguments and like fighting with every critic that ever comes along. We're not here to fight with anyone. Your job is just to be a clear eyed representative of reality because that's who our God is. He's the author of all creation. We're pointing people back to life, to reality, to the source of this universe in which we live. We're not trying to defend or put out some vague ethereal idea. We're pointing people to God himself, but it matters how we go about it. 2 Timothy 2:24 instructs us that the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but must be kind to everyone, able to teach, not resentful. The purpose of all of this unapologetics is to help you feel a bit more confident, feel like you are in fact able to teach, let you have these conversations and keep your cool in the process. So now that we've spent a couple weeks of background on who we are and how we go about it, let's get into the nitty gritty. We're going to look at some of the most common philosophical obstacles that you will encounter in the wild. But there's a secret, really good news. Fact is, 99% of all the objections you will ever face in the world boil down to three basic ideas. This means you never need to panic about how to respond to some new argument. You just need to learn how to recognize which bucket it belongs in and then address that accordingly. For today, we're going to look at the first bucket, which is relativism. This is like the most prevalent argument in our culture today because it sounds like such a peacemaker's position. You've probably heard the slogans, "You have your truth, I have mine. You can't really know anything for certain. Don't push your truth on others. I'm just living my truth." Honestly, one of the craziest things about it is that relativism is just nothing new. Like 700 years before Jesus even walked the earth, the prophet Isaiah wrote about this in Isaiah 5:20 that says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." This is exactly the idea of saying we can flip flop, we can change it, we can redefine what's out there. You call it evil, I call it's good. It's truth, it's my truth, it's your truth, whatever. If that works for you, great. It works for me, I'm good too. Light, darkness, bitter, sweet, who cares? Whatever works for you, you do you, boo. The key to realize is that relativism is so seductive because it feels so incredibly inclusive and non judgmental. This whole worldview seeks to make the ambassador look arrogant for claiming that Jesus is the only way, for claiming that we have actual truth. But remember, I told you that we are supposed to represent reality. And the reality is that relativism makes it utterly impossible to even have a logical conversation. That is why the kryptonite for relativism is a thing called logical self refutation. Don't worry about that big name. All you need to know is that it means the argument crumbles under its own weight and defeats itself. It's awesome. You don't have to defeat it, it'll defeat itself for you. I explained in our last session how questions are so much better than a bold claim. When we try to tell somebody what is right or what to do, they immediately get defensive. That's human nature. So ask a question. When someone says there's no such thing as absolute truth or that's just your truth, simply ask them, is that statement true? Here's why this works so well. If their statement they just made is true for everyone, then they have just stated an absolute truth, which inherently means that relativism is false and also means that the thing they just said is false. They're making a truth claim that simply cannot be true based on what true means. Not based on my idea of truth, but based on the definition of the word. And even if they try to back out of it saying, well, that statement is their truth, then awesome. That means it doesn't apply to you or me. And so we can freely ignore this bonkers idea that there's no such thing as truth and move forward in reality where truth exists. What I love about this is how simple it is. You don't have to be some kind of a PhD to use this one. Just be a punk theologian. God gave you a brain and he wants you to use it. So look at the evidence. Look at the simple logic. Relativism is logically impossible. It's like claiming to be a married bachelor or saying, I don't speak a single word of English in clear, fluent English. It's making a statement that by its own nature cannot be true. So let's look behind the curtain a little bit. Relativism denies the existence of truth, but the hidden motivation behind it, the allure of this philosophy, what makes it feel so attractive, is that most people don't want truth to be a fixed thing because it's a lot more convenient if we get to define things however we want in any given situation. Paul explains that people try to downplay truth because they don't want to be accountable to a creator. Romans 1:18 says, "The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people, who suppress the truth by their wickedness." You see, we don't want truth to be real because that means truth comes from somewhere. And that somewhere is God Himself. There's someone beyond us who defines what is true and what is false. And as soon as there's that, as soon as God is real, then that means that He's in charge and I'm not. And well, gosh, that can be kind of scary because if He's in charge and he gets to decide what's true and what's right and what's wrong, then sooner or later, I'm probably going to have to answer to him. And we don't want to do that. We don't want there to be truth because we don't want there to be God, because we don't want there to be accountability. And so we say, there's no real thing as truth. You can never really know for sure. And so just do the best you can, live your truth. You decide what's true for you and go with that, and that'll be just fine. But truth is not a bad thing. We want gravity to be true so that we don't fly off the planet. We certainly hope that things like oxygen and my heart beating are true, but it goes so much farther than that. The first verse that I shared at the beginning of this was 2 Timothy 2:24, giving us those instructions to be kind and teach people. The next verse explains the motivation for it. 2 Timothy 2:25 says, "Opponents must be gently instructed, in the hope that God will grant them repentance, leading them to a knowledge of the truth." Your goal as an ambassador is to lead people into a knowledge of the truth. That is absolutely antithetical to relativism. Rather than deny or reject truth, we stand firm on it because we represent a king, and that king offers freedom through truth. We read in John 8:31 to 32, to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, "If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Of course, it can feel intimidating to challenge someone who sounds so tolerant with their you do you, I'll do me, everything's fine. But remember, pointing out that a statement is self refuting is not you being mean, it's being helpful, if anything. You're warning them against sawing off the very limb that they're sitting on. You're trying to help people avoid building their lives on something that is completely hollow and empty. More importantly, our goal is to guide them to know the truth that can set them free. That truth is Jesus. But like I said last week, don't assume you have to go all the way there in one shot. Just get them to acknowledge truth. That's an important step. And so to practice this month we're going to play a game called Spot the Relativism. When you're listening to the lyrics of a song or a line in a movie or some comment that a friend makes, pay attention for that relativist claim. Something saying, well, there's no real truth. No one can ever really know for sure. Oh, if you think that's true, then that's great for you. I have my own truth. Any of these things, it sounds a bunch of different ways, but it's all the same idea. And so when that comes up, ask yourself, or if you're actually in a conversation with someone, ask them, is that statement true? You'll be amazed at how quickly the whole no truth idea completely collapses. Next month, we'll jump into the other two buckets of all the objections you find. First one is pluralism. That's the all paths lead to the same place myth. And the other is scientism, the insistence that if you can't prove it scientifically, then it's not real. Spoiler alert, both of those are logically self refuting too. Until then, don't shy away from representing your king and his glorious kingdom. Clear the path, speak the truth, and trust the Spirit.